My name is Richard Benbow. I was born and spent most of my younger years, pre-adult years, in St. Louis, Missouri. My mother was a housekeeper, and my stepfather was I guess you would call a butler. He worked for a Monsanto chemical company in the executive wing of their headquarters out in Creve Coeur, Missouri. My parents were hardworking. They made sure that my brothers and I have two brothers. One is a year and a half younger than me, and the other one is 10 years younger than me. But we were always kept busy. Things around the house, we had chores we had to do our homework. I would say that we were like a middle-class family, working to middle-class family. Most of the neighbors had single-family homes, the kids. We had a park a couple of blocks away. We spent a lot of time at the park. I think the thing that really interested me was sports, and I started to participate in organized sports at a very young age, and it kept me busy. We always had the greatest Thanksgiving and Christmas dinners. It was not unusual to have, say, 25, 30 people for a Thanksgiving dinner, and the same with Christmas. We were all excited about our toys and, being able to play and have fun, and it was just a joyous time. St. Louis was mostly segregated, but I was fortunate to have been born about the time that civil rights started to have an impact on black people's lives. I went to integrated schools. They were integrated for a year or two, and then, white flight took place, and then they became mostly segregated. The neighborhoods I lived in were the same way. They started out white, then a few blacks, and then when the whites moved out, more blacks moved in, and then it became predominantly black. The first knowledge that I had of my race having some impact on me was in 1955 with the incident involving Emmett Till. And I remember I was only about 7, going on 8 years old, and I remember all the adults around the TV listening to the reports of it. And I didn't quite understand all of it. All I knew was this young black kid had died, had been murdered. I said, "Granddad, why did they do that to him?" And his answer was simple. He said, "Because he's a Negro." And, and I thought, and I looked in the mirror, I said, so am I. Could this happen to me? I was identified as a pretty sharp kid, and so I skipped a couple of grades. So I ended up in classrooms where the kids were older, and some of the older boys, some 2 and 3 years older than me, I was influenced by them, and probably doing things I had no business doing, So I was doing that, and I had a teacher who took me aside and talked to my mother as well and said, he's picking up some habits, hanging out with guys that he shouldn't be hanging out with. He should focus more on his studies, and he'll do well. And that changed my life. I started to do that, followed that advice, and lo and behold, I think it paid off because it led me to thinking about what I wanted to do after I got out of school. And at that time, I was only thinking about high school. And then I had a counselor who says, "Well, what colleges are you going to apply to?" And I said, "Well, I hadn't thought about that." He says, "Well, you should." What was happening in the world around me was really impacting me more than anything else in my life. The Civil Rights Act of 1964, and I graduated that following January, 65. And my mother being an employee of the Teamsters at that time, she was still in school, but eventually the Teamsters hired her. So during my college years, when I come home, they had organized protests at banks that didn't employ black tellers, and we participated in that. They protested supermarkets that sold inferior food products in our community. And we did that, my brother and I, the one just younger than me. Then we had a real bad snowstorm, ice storm, and the Pruitt-Igoe projects, which were downtown, a low-income housing project, had elderly and disabled people stuck on the top floor. And they couldn't get out, the elevators didn't work, and the whole staircase was iced down. And they had to get food somehow up to those people. And the Teamsters organized a group of young people, mostly young men, and we climbed those stairs with those icy stairs, carrying boxes and bags of groceries to people who were shut in. They were so thankful to see us, and it made me feel so good to be helpful. I decided I was going to do something to try to make the world better, so I wanted to be of service. And that's just what took over my life. And I got interested in economics, sociology, and then I got to urban planning. And that opened up a whole new world for me. And I pursued a master's degree. I went to St. Louis University and got a master's degree there. I went to a private liberal arts college for undergrad. Elmhurst College is now Elmhurst University, right outside Chicago. And but by the time I finished Elmhurst, I knew what I was going to do. And I started studying urban planning, public administration, public policy, and just got absorbed in that. I got jobs with the YMCA. I worked for the Model Cities program. The Model Cities was brand new. I'm telling you, I ran through so many jobs, but it was all doing the kinds of things that I wanted to do. Then the U.S. Equal Employment Opportunity Commission came along and opened a district office in St. Louis, and I got hired as an investigator for the U.S. EEOC. And I would go out to job sites and investigate complaints about employment discrimination. But I wasn't doing what I really wanted to do. And this is a story that I tell a lot, but it's absolutely true. I'm sitting in the library at St. Louis University, and I'm about to graduate, and I'm saying, well, what's my next move? I'm ready to move on and do something different. Where am I going? I had relatives in Los Angeles, and I said, oh, the weather's beautiful out there. I've got kinfolk out there. Maybe Los Angeles is a place for me to go. And so I picked up the white pages, and I went to the government section, local government, Los Angeles, California, and I'm looking up into all these agencies, and I came across the Community Redevelopment Agency. And I said, that's where I'm going. I moved to California. I'm going to work for the Community Redevelopment Agency. So by that time, I was married. I had one child. My wife and I picked up. We moved to California. I walked in the office unannounced, presented myself, and asked to speak to the personnel manager. I was never shy. And would you have an appointment? I said no. I just want to, present myself, so if something opens that I'm qualified for, I would be considered. And so I said, well, okay. For the next few years, I continued to check back to see if anything was going on, if there was a job open for me or that I was qualified for. And it didn't happen until June 1976, almost. It's about 3.5 years later. And I applied and I got hired. I was thrilled to death. I came into CRA, it was probably just a little over an entry-level job, but I took my work seriously and I worked hard, and I guess people noticed it. I was able to move up the ladder in the organization and finally to the top. Speaking about the value of the kind of work that I've done in my career and the need to carry it on, I have to be honest with you, I was so disappointed when the redevelopment agencies were dissolved. I thought that was one of the greatest mistakes that we made in the state of California. And I think that can account for some of the problems we see today, the homelessness. We were totally committed to affordable housing. Most of the housing that we did was affordable housing for people who really needed it. And now we're in the biggest homeless crisis we've ever been in, and we still can't figure out the housing. In 1980, we were engaged in housing homeless people on Skid Row at CRA. That's 42 years ago. And the problem has just grown since then, and it's out of hand now. Speaking of experiences that I can recall during my career that have had a great impact on me, following the civil unrest in 1992, when the city was just being, torn apart, certain parts. We had a lot of dialogue during that time, and people were saying, we'll never get those buildings back. The companies that operate those businesses, they're not coming back. The chain operations, they're not coming back. And this is going to be like this for a long time. And I said to myself, it doesn't have to be that way. If they won't rebuild it, we could rebuild it ourselves. Why do we have to wait for somebody else to rebuild it? So I thought about how can we do this? And I didn't know a lot of developers that looked like me. And so I said, well, that seems to be a skill that's missing. And if we could pull real estate professionals or people that work for nonprofits that were into the affordable housing business or helping people to, get back up on their feet, maybe we can do something to teach ourselves how to rebuild this city. Which led me to the University of Southern California, where I pitched an idea to them about a program in real estate finance and development, and they liked it. And we started that program. We had our first graduating class in the summer of 1993, a year after the riots. We actually got that program up and running. And I'll never forget that first graduating class in 1993. I was so proud. I have two sons. My oldest son, Richard III, is engaged in the educational sector. He's the senior vice president for the Western region for Western Governors University. And doing a great job. I'm very proud of him. But I passed on that nothing takes the place of hard work and perseverance to him, and he's taking it to heart, and he's doing a really good job there. My youngest, Brian, he's more entrepreneurial. He's into sales and marketing of software, and he's doing a great job, but he's also an entrepreneur. He started his own business. He's had a couple of businesses, and so I applaud his efforts. I support them both, and I love them for being themselves and being hardworking and just being good young men. Never had a moment's trouble out of either one of them. My advice for the youth of today is remember this: nothing takes the place of hard work and perseverance. Decide what your goal is and commit yourself to it. Fully commit, no excuses, and you will succeed.